Attention, you're listening to the Todd Huff Radio Show, America's home for conservative, not bitter talk radio. Be advised that the content of this program has been documented to prevent and even cure liberalism, and listening may cause you to lean to the right. Here's your conservative, but not bitter host, Todd Huff.
All right, my friends, welcome to today's episode of the Todd Huff Show. It's my pleasure to be here. Email todd@toddhuffshow.com. Thoughts, questions, feedback. You know the routine. 317-210-2830. That's where you can send your text messages. I want to talk today about the lawlessness of the left. The lawlessness. It is, you look out there at what's going on. Just to give you a quick summary, we've got what we're going to talk about here today. James Comey, former FBI director, posting on social media 8647, which we'll go through what that means. He absolutely should know what this means. But it's basically calling for it's code to call for the assassination or the end of the 47th president. I'll explain that for those who may not know what that means in a moment. But we've also got members of Congress on the left, on the Democrat Party side, that have stormed an ICE facility. They don't want to be held accountable for that. They say, Hakeem Jeffries says, if these folks are arrested for, by the way, breaking the law, if what is alleged to have happened is what actually happened, then there's a red line. The president, the administration should not cross that red line. We've got that out there. We just have judges who are helping and aiding and abetting illegal aliens. You got people in the deep state. Tulsi Gabbard fired a couple of these folks in intelligence who were basically acting as deep state agents, who were not advancing the agenda they were standing in opposition to. The commander-in-chief of the nation and the head of the executive branch of which they are a part. Lawlessness abounds, my friends. Lawlessness abounds, and I want to talk about it today. So, before we get started, let me remind you, if you love seafood, check out Kenai Fish. Kenai Fish delivers to you no matter where you are in this country. You can be in a landlocked state, a double landlocked state. You can be in Nebraska, and you can get fresh seafood, probably something you didn't know was possible, delivered straight to your door, straight from the waters of Alaska. We're talking sockeye, coho, and king salmon. We're talking king crab, snow crab, scallops. We're talking halibut, rockfish, you name it, my friends. This is the best seafood that you're going to find, and it can be delivered to you. It's going to be fresh because it's vacuum sealed. It's delivered quickly. It comes next day air. And as a listener of this program, you can get a 15% discount. So the website that you would go to is KenaiFish.com, Kenai, KenaiFish.com. Promo code Todd will save you 15% on your order. Again, that's KenaiFish.com, promo code Todd. One taste of this seafood, my friends, you will be hooked. All right, let's talk here. Let's talk here a little bit about what broke, I guess, yesterday. Headline here, I'm looking at Fox News. Ex-FBI Chief Comey's 8647 social media post condemned by the White House as an attempt to put a hit on the president. This is deeply concerning to all of us and is being taken seriously, White House spokesperson says. So, I'm going to read a bit of this. I'm going to explain some background. We're going to talk about this. But here's what it says. The Secret Service is investigating after ex-FBI Director James Comey posted an Instagram photo of seashells arranged to show the numbers 8647. 8647. A message that White House officials swiftly condemned as an attempt to put out a hit against the 47th president. So he posts this picture. I sent this to me last night. I've seen this other places as well. Someone on the beach has put down these shells, 8647. Comey posts it, and it says this: cool shell formation on my beach walk. So he's, again, we're supposed to believe here that he's strolling down the beach. He comes up upon the shells on the beach, which are clearly put into an order here of the numbers 8647. By the way, as I was reading this, I got to tell you something else that was in the back of my mind. I'll get to this in a moment, but I think this is actually, well, both of these things are very important. If you're walking down the beach and you see something like this, you see that a sandcastle is made, or you see that shells are arranged to communicate some message. It's clearly numbers here. This is not something that is the result of happen chance. This is something or someone coming along and deliberately designing a message, albeit in nature, but it's not something that you would think, wow, those shells just washed up here magically on the beach shore. And I'm just reminded of some of the talks we've had recently on here, especially about the need for a creator, especially yesterday or the day before, the news that Noah's Ark, some people think that Noah's Ark has been found 19 miles south, I think, of Mount Ararat in Turkey. You know, you find these things, you see evidence in creation. You're walking through the woods, I've heard this analogy used before too, and you stumble across the 747 jetliner, fully maxed out, probably the same one that Trump is trying to get from Qatar. You see that in the middle of the woods, you don't think, wow, look at how this was created by coincidence. You don't think that, right? So there's some sort of design and intentionality behind what's going on here. And the intentionality of these shells, the intentionality of this message is clear, and I'll explain what this means. So 86 is a term that's used in restaurant or kitchen lingo. Now, I learned this because I've spent some time. I've never been a server. I've never worked in a kitchen. I've done a variety of jobs. I worked in a deli. I think that was my first job. I think my very first job, I helped my grandpa. He was a construction guy, so we would do roofing and siding and that sort of things, those sorts of things. I did some basic framing and things like that, but I worked in a deli. I've worked as a horse farmer, as I've shared with you. I've worked detasseling. I drove a tractor with the detasseling crew. I've not ever worked in a restaurant, though, but I've spent a lot of time in restaurants, and I've gotten to know some of the servers in restaurants, and I learned, they told me, I remember one time I was ordering something. I'm the kind of guy, listen, I'm a meat and potatoes guy, so I don't like the green stuff on, say, if I get a cheeseburger, for example. I like it plain. That's just me. Take it or leave it. And so they would say, okay, well, 86, the lettuce. And I'm like, what does that mean? And then they told me in the industry, and I think it was because of one of the systems, you would type in 86, and it means a number of things that are all generally pointing in the same direction. Like they would say 86 this on the sandwich, that would mean don't put it on the sandwich. They would say if you ordered something they didn't have, it was 86th in the system. It was removed, or it was temporarily out of stock. So it basically means, not available, remove this, strike this from the order, sort of thing. So the idea here, when you see 8647, this is not like the last four digits of someone's social security number or phone number. These two numbers, 86 means to remove, eliminate whatever is to follow. And what's 47? 47 is Trump. Trump is the 47th. He was both the 45th and the 47th president of the United States. And so now you've got a code in the on this beach here that Comey thinks is a cool shell formation. That's a weird way to put that too. Shell formation. It's like these shells just washed up here and just miraculously made numbers. Very cool. That's what James Comey's alleging here, I guess. But, my friends, he gets some backlash. He gets some backlash about this because of what I just said. I'm going to go back to the article here. It says Comey later deleted the post after online backlash from government officials, lawmakers, and President Donald Trump's son. Trump has faced 2 assassination attempts in the past year, one of which resulted in him being shot and a bystander being killed. The post included the alleged hit, showed the numbers in question etched into the sand at a beach using seashells. And I read to you the caption, "Cool shell formation on my beach walk." While to some people, where'd this go? While to some people, numbers may appear innocuous, 86 is frequently used as a call sign for murdering or getting rid of someone, while 47 has been interpreted as denoting. Well, of course, there's hats. Trump has hats that has 45-47, right? He's the 45th and the 47th president. So from this 86 vernacular, it's now commonly used to, I guess in code, talk about murdering or getting rid of someone, eliminating someone. After backlash on social media over the post, including from at least one lawmaker who called for Comey to be arrested, the ex-FBI chief deleted the Instagram post and posted a message addressing it. So he deletes it, either fearing, what are the options here? He either truly didn't know this. This is not like this is something the FBI director should know. This is something that the FBI director should know. They're in the business of investigating people, and I find it impossible to believe that in all of his investigative years as FBI director and being involved in the agency and law enforcement, that he's never come across the term 86. This might not be something that you're sitting around the dinner table talking about, but in the law enforcement circles, this should not be some sort of a shocking thing. This should not come as a surprise to him. So either he's an idiot, I guess. I don't know. I don't know what else to say. Or there's something else more nefarious going on, because he either knew or he didn't. If he didn't know, he should have known, I think. And if he did know, then that's an open call. This is a call for the ending, the removal, the assassination of President Trump. So he deletes his post and he says this: I posted earlier a picture of some shells I saw today on a beach walk, which I assumed were a political message. Why would you assume that? If you didn't know what the message, that the numbers, what they meant, why would you assume it was a political message? It makes me wonder, what else did he stumble upon? Were there other shell formations nearby that said to murder the president? Were there other messages nearby that were saying things without the code that were derogatory or hate-inspired? Or, also calling directly for the assassination of Trump? Why would he assume that 8647? If you didn't know that, why would you assume it was a political message? I didn't realize some folks associate those numbers with violence. You didn't know what it meant, but you thought it was a political message, so you thought it would be a good idea to post it to your Instagram account. And on top of that, now that makes, as I think about this, that makes your initial comments under the image even more suspect to me. Cool shell formation on my beach walk. So you assumed it was a political message. It's just numbers. It's 4 digits. I mean, that could be any number of things. I don't know why you would assume it was a political message. There was a day where we would assume that was somebody's phone number or maybe some sort of a code, but why would we assume political? When I was a kid, I wouldn't have assumed political. I might have thought that was the last 4 digits to a phone number. Of course, I grew up in the era, I guess this still happens, but people would write phone numbers in bathrooms. I don't know. To me, that's the first thing I would think if I had no idea. I don't know why you would assume it was a political message. And then after assuming it was a political message, why would you take a picture of it and say it was a cool formation? That seems just very odd. It's not cool at all. It's numbers depicted with shells on the sand. You're actually, I think, incriminating yourself by saying you knew it was a political message and saying it was cool, but now you're saying you don't know what it means. Here's the rest of his stupid follow-up post on Instagram. I didn't realize some folks associate those numbers with violence. It never occurred to me, but I oppose violence of any kind, so I took the post down. So what did you think it meant? Some sort of political message. So am I supposed to assume that he saw 47 and knew Trump was the 47th president and assume that it was some message about the president? He didn't know what 86 meant, and so he just decided to post it and say it was a cool formation because it said something about the president in code. I mean, none of this makes any sense, James Comey. And by the way, this guy's the director, former director, ex-director of the FBI. He's the director of the FBI. This isn't like some Paul Blart mall cop here. This is a guy who was the head of the FBI. Had enough understanding to see that it was a political message, thought that it was cool, didn't know what it meant, thought, hey, perfect recipe. That's exactly what I'm looking for to post on social media, especially as someone who was a former director of the FBI. I mean, does that pass the smell test at all for you? What is going on here? So people are calling for him. There are people who are calling for him to, face consequences for calling for or inciting, encouraging people to assassinate the president of the United States. I mean, we're stuck here with trying to make this make sense. In fact, Tulsi Gabbard is one of these folks. She was on with, I think she was on with Jesse Waters on Fox News last night. I had a soundbite here pulled up somewhere. I thought it was in this particular place. Bear with me. Here we go. So, Tulsi Gabbard, who's now DNI head here, she is on with Jesse Waters late last night, 10 p.m., talking about this, saying that she posted later on X that, let's just listen to what he said here.
National intelligence. Are you buying that the former FBI director didn't know what 86 Trump meant?
Absolutely not, Jesse. That is a ridiculous and insane statement to make, certainly within this context, but especially coming from a guy who's the former director of the FBI.
Yes.
A guy who spent most of his career prosecuting mobsters and gangsters, people who know and execute other humans and use this exact lingo of 86. Comey himself admitted in his follow-on message that he knew that this was a political statement.
Yes,
the only reason he knew that, Jesse, was because a little over a month ago, a bunch of anti-Trump, anti-Elon Musk protesters were proliferating the use of this 8647 slogan, which was a veiled call to action to murder the sitting president of the United States.
Thinly veiled.
So for Comey to think that we, the American people, are so stupid as to think that he, as a former FBI director, former prosecutor, and someone who clearly pays attention to what's going on, would believe his lie that he didn't know what this actually was calling for, the dangerousness of this, Jesse, cannot be underestimated. When we have 2 assassination attempts on the president's life, when we have people who look to guys like Comey, who've been celebrated by MSNBC and the Democrat elite and CNN as the beacon of integrity, the law and order guy, the guy who would tell the truth no matter what the consequences. This is the guy who's issuing a hit on President Trump, the president that the American people voted for. So it's guys like Comey and others who call the president the modern day Nazi, people who are in great positions of influence, who are saying that President Trump poses an existential threat to our country. These are people who hate democracy and hate the American people because they cannot stand that the people overwhelmingly chose to elect Donald Trump and send him back to the White House. So they are seeking other means to get their way and to try to remove him from that position.
How serious?
I mean, that's just crazy to think about. Former FBI director, who, by the way, has had his fair run-ins with Trump, by the way, as well. Here's what Tulsi Gabbard tweeted, or posted on X, I should say. It's always going to be, no offense, Elon. I'll never, you can't teach old dogs new tricks on that. But posting on X, she wrote this when she posted out, or I should say, posted this clip from her interview with Jesse Waters. James Comey just issued a call to action to murder the President of the United States. As a former FBI director and someone who spent most of his career prosecuting mobsters and gangsters, he knew exactly what he was doing, and he must be held accountable under the full force of the law. We fully support the Secret Service investigation into Comey's threat on the president's life. Yikes. Now you know what's going to come from this if they do this, if they pursue this, if they, arrest, investigate Comey. It's going to be accusations that the Trump administration, are using their office to get even with their political adversaries. But again, does that mean that the political adversaries, those who are on the other side of the political aisle, can call for the open assassination? I mean, it's thinly veiled, but clearly in the, for those in the know, this is a call to kill the president. He's at least, at best, he's promoting a message to those who want to see the president of the United States assassinated. At worst, he's openly calling for it on his Instagram account. Where's Instagram? Where's Meta? Where's Mark Zuckerberg on this one? Is he Comey going to face any of the consequences many of us faced on social media for things that were nowhere near, like, just, in this category, simply having different political opinions? Or is Meta going to let its platform be used for this? I don't know. I mean, where are they? I haven't seen, maybe he was, but I haven't seen he got penalized or in trouble for this. Anyway, I'm out of time this first segment, my friends. Quick timeout is necessary. You're listening here to the home of conservative, not bitter talk. I'm your host, Todd Huff. Back in just a minute. Welcome back, my friends. Playing this clip, Tulsi Gabbard on with Jesse Waters of Fox News last night, talking about James Comey, talking about this, well, I guess you could say veiled threat to assassinate the President of the United States, the same president who has been shot in the ear millimeters away from being murdered, being assassinated last July, the same president who was targeted by another lunatic on his golf course down in South Florida, being targeted by, again, a lunatic would-be assassin if the Secret Service did not apprehend and detain this fella. So this is a very real threat that the president faces on an ongoing basis. This is not going anywhere. The more the president does to restore this country back to how she was founded, the more that the president disrupts the deep state, the more that the president seeks to dismantle and drain the swamp, the more this stuff that becomes a very legitimate possibility. We are dealing with abject evil here. We are dealing with people who are hell-bent on stopping the president at all costs. They believe that they're morally justified. In fact, we'll get to that. We talked about that on this program before. Jesse Waters asks Tulsi Gabbard as a follow-up question, is the administration taking this seriously? And basically, what are the next steps? And here is what Tulsi Gabbard says in response.
We're taking this very seriously. As you mentioned, the Department of Homeland Security, and specifically Sean Curran, the current Secret Service director, a man who has been willing to lay down his life as the lead of President Trump's Secret Service detail for years now. He takes this seriously and is leading the investigation into this threat. There has to be accountability for this. There was a Rutgers study that just came out a little over a month ago, Jesse, that asked respondents their view on these calls to assassinate President Trump. And over 55% of respondents felt that murdering President Trump would be, quote unquote, somewhat justified.
Now that's the study. We talked about that. She said it was a month or so ago. I'm going to take her at her word. It was recently. And I remember talking about that. I remember talking about the numbers were around 50%. And it was of people on the political left. It wasn't just Trump. It was Trump, but it wasn't just Trump. They said that it was at least somewhat justifiable to murder Trump and Elon Musk. Massive percentages of people on the left. And she's talking about here this assassination culture. It is remarkable. Sometimes, as individuals, we live our own lives. We do our own thing, especially if we're busy, especially if we're convicted, we're passionate. We feel very, driven, motivated, have our eyes fixed on something we're trying to accomplish or a mission, something that's important to us. It's sometimes hard to relate. I mean, it is hard to relate to people who think like this. In what universe must you have been born and raised and lived in order for you? Where did you come from? Who taught you? If you are of the opinion that it's somewhat justifiable to assassinate any of our political leaders or any of our CEOs. Remember, this comes in the wake of the assassination in New York City of the healthcare CEO earlier this year. Was it Luigi Mangione? Is that his name? He's a martyr in some circles. Some people believe that this guy is doing the work of God by assassinating, murdering people, an individual who ran a healthcare organization on the streets of New York. They believe that this is noble. And those same folks are now thinking that the similar thing would be acceptable if someone murdered Trump, and Elon Musk was in that group as well. Where do these ideas come from, my friends? The mind will justify what the heart desires. These folks are so convinced, and not even intellectually so, just I would say it's like a peer pressure thing. It's definitely not a logical conclusion. It's either that it's definitely that their heart has been turned to evil. Look, if you're defending yourself from someone who's inflicting harm or imminent harm upon you, then you can use force to protect yourself, your loved ones, and so forth. But to proactively go after someone who has different politics from you, who runs a company that you don't like the person running the company, you don't get. I can't even believe I'm saying these words. These are things I've never even had to tell my children because people understand this. See, the only people that don't understand this are the people who have turned their hearts towards wickedness and evil. This is preposterous that I should even have to be coming on here. And I know you know this, but I'm speaking to the culture at large. I can't believe I have to come on here to say to the culture at large, you can't kill somebody who disagrees with you. It is mind-boggling to me. It's mind-boggling to me as someone who embraces American ideas and principles, embraces free speech. It's funny. I listen to people. I don't listen to them, but sometimes I'll post something on social media. We've dialed back our social media. There's a lot of stuff going on here. I'll tell you more about it in the next segment. But some things that I'm doing here to continue to grow, the business and all that sort of stuff. That side of things. Anyway, I don't want to get into that at the moment, but it's amazing to me how people assume that they know what I do, what I think, how I think about things if I post something. And listen, they can have different opinions than me. It doesn't bother me. I don't care if people ask genuine questions. I don't care if people genuinely disagree with my opinion or take. You might from time to time, and that's okay. We can still be friends. What bothers me are the people who try to destroy or take down people in any number of ways, up to and including the assassination of them. You've heard about this thing. What do they call it? What do they call Oz? What do they call the thing where they swatting someone, right? Swatting. So if you haven't heard about this, there's a movement. There is a thing called swatting, which someone will call in. They'll find where an individual lives, a conservative commentator, a politician, whatever, someone that they don't like, and they'll call into the local law enforcement and make a basically like an emergency report claiming something really bad is happening at this person's residence, and they send the SWAT team. They'll send the SWAT team. The police are trying to do what they think is their job. They don't know. And then some unsuspecting conservative commentator, politician, writer, blogger, whatever, wakes up to see the SWAT team kicking in the door, which you can see, especially at night, how that's a recipe for disaster. If you're awakened in the middle of the night, you might grab a firearm. You don't know what's going on. You might be seen with a gun and the SWAT team takes you out. I mean, this has a recipe for some really bad things. And I'll be honest with you, I think that's what these folks want. It's what these folks want. People who are in these spaces have taken action to proactively alert and file reports with local law enforcement, telling them, hey, I'm someone who fits the profile of people who have been targeted for this activity. If you're assigned, if you get a call to send the SWAT team to my residence, at least put that in your system so that pops up on your way to my house at 2 a.m. or whatever time it might be. And just know that this could be a false alarm and that someone's doing this. This is actually how people have to think, my friends. I'm telling you this from personal experience. So there is a culture that thinks that they are justified in doing whatever. And don't doubt for a moment that there are people that are hoping when they get a SWAT team dispatched, they're absolutely hoping that something happens and the person gets caught in the crosshairs of some misunderstanding, escalation, in the middle of the night where people are confused and can't see clearly. People see the shadows and, reaching for a weapon and all that stuff. They're hoping for that. Despicable human beings like James Comey here calling for the assassination, encouraging the assassination of President Donald J. Trump. Going to take a breather here, my friends. I'll play the rest of this on the back side of this. I think I can get the rest of this clip in, or I'll get in what I can, and that's what we'll wrap up with in the first hour. But friends, last call. Today is the last day. If you want to be a lifetime member of the Inner Circle, this is your last chance. $99 for life. There will be other opportunities to join. It will not look like this, but $99 gets you a lifetime membership, and you'll be inside the Inner Circle with me as a founding member, shaping the program. You'll get some exclusive content. You'll get behind-the-scenes updates and information and so forth. There will be live video chats, lots of things there in the Inner Circle that we will be building and developing, and you'll get a personal welcome phone call from me as well. $99. $99 to be a lifetime member. If you're interested, go to toddhuffshow.com/join. Again, toddhuffshow.com/join. That's where you go to sign up. $99 lifetime membership today, May 16th, the last day. If you try to do this on May 17th, it's not going to work. May 16th, 2025, last chance you have to become a lifetime member of the Inner Circle, toddhuffshow.com/join. I've got to take a break, my friends. Quick timeout. Back in a minute. Welcome back, my friends. Third and final segment of the first hour of today's program. Last day of the week. I know it's disappointing, but we do have another hour. And if you miss any of the program, you can go to the website, toddhuffshow.com. You can also download the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. All right, that being said, let me get, actually, one more thing. Let me just remind you here. Let me remind you that if you're tired of spending your hard-earned money with businesses that turn around and support leftist causes, check out Freedom Marketplace. That's why we created Freedom Marketplace. One of the reasons why it's a free, searchable directory of businesses that share your conservative principles, your conservative values, businesses that have vowed not to support leftist candidates, leftist causes. This is just a place where you can find good, patriotic businesses that are pushing in the same direction that you are. Check it out today, freedommarketplace.net. Liberty and business for all, my friends. All right, so let's get back to as much of Tulsi Gabbard and Jesse Waters here as we can, because this is important stuff. I mean, we have someone who is a former FBI director calling for the assassination of Trump, intentionally or unintentionally, but that's what he's doing here. That's what he's done with his stupid Instagram post. And so here Tulsi Gabbard is with Jesse Waters. We played a couple minutes of this. I want to play a little bit more of this because she thinks, you'll hear at the end of this, that Comey should actually be arrested.
This is the effect of people like James Comey doing this kind of stuff. This study also pointed out that there is a quote-unquote assassination culture that is starting to take over the views of what they call the extreme left.
Just what we
the
talked
American
about.
people cannot take this lightly. Whatever your politics, we cannot allow people to get by without being held accountable for this kind of public call to assassinate the President of the United States.
Do you believe that Comey is goading you guys to come after him because he wants to be a political martyr? He wants to be set up so he can say, oh, look, we were right. Donald Trump is a dictator. They're coming after me. They're arresting me. They're interrogating me. I was just using my free speech.
Mm-hmm. Sure you were, James.
You know, whatever his intent, I will tell you that there is a guy in Georgia who is issuing threats on my life about a month ago, and he's in jail today. He has been indicted with a crime, as he should have been, and he is in jail as we speak. So whatever James Comey intent, he and people like him need to be held to account according to the law, which is something that he claims to have given his life for and stands by the rule of law. Fantastic. The rule of law says people like him who issue direct threats against the President of the United States, essentially issuing a call to assassinate him, must be held accountable under the law.
Do you believe Comey should be in jail?
I do. Any other person with a position of influence that he has, people who take very seriously what a guy of his stature, his experience, and what the propaganda media has built him up to be, I'm very concerned for the president's life. We've already seen assassination attempts. I'm very concerned for his life. And James Comey, in my view, should be held accountable and put behind bars for this.
There you go. There you go. She's right. There are people that have been indicted, people who are serving time in jail for doing this sort of thing. Why would James Comey not face the same consequence? Well, Todd, you can't go after your political opponents. I mean, listen, I get that. I agree with that statement. You shouldn't target your political opponents. You heard me behind this microphone talking about how the left has used lawfare to go after President Trump, in particular these past few years. But they have been doing everything in their power to take this guy out, using every tool at their disposal for a long, long time. The idea that I'm in favor of that is crazy. But context is king. These things are nuanced. You can't... You don't get a free pass just because you are on the political opposition either. And this is something that's clear. This is another thing I challenge the left on, by the way. I challenge the left. I challenge you if you're someone who's on the left, or if you're a liberal, if you're someone who believes that Trump should be in prison. I'd like you to explain it to me. I'd like you to explain what law Trump broke and why he should be in prison. What evidence exists? What, how we eclipse the beyond a reasonable doubt requirement in this country. How we do that. What are the charges? Explain what he's done in clear terms, and then explain how he's guilty of it. Because I can do that with this, and you can do that with this too. This 8647, I already explained how it's connected to the concept of eliminating or getting rid of something. 47 is the president's, he's the 47th president. 8647, you don't have to have much of an imagination, is a combination of taking out, well, the first part meaning to take out or eliminate, the 47 meaning the 47th president. That's what the message is. That's what it is. Let's take out the 47th president. And by take out, James Comey knows what that means, even though he may act like he's completely innocent or an idiot or a fool. But to eliminate, to put a hit on, to end the life. That's what this is a call for. So he takes pictures of seashells, puts it on there on social media. He's now promoting a call to take out the president. There are clear laws against this. See how easy that was? And it took me, maybe a minute to explain that? Try to do the same if you're a leftist, a Democrat, with the things Trump has been accused of. Anyway, I'm out of time. See you on the other side of the hour. SDG.